Hi, my name's Ian Barnard. I'm a hand lettering artist from the UK, and in this video I'm going to show you my process of how to create a chalk lettered piece from scratch. Hopefully along the way you'll learn some tips and tricks of how to use Affinity Designer, and I'll show you the technique I use to lay out a hand lettered quote from sketch to final thing. So let's get started. So first up, I always like to start my designs with a pencil and paper. This helps me to keep my work super rough so I can get as many ideas out of my head as quickly as possible without getting precious about how they look. So the quote we're going to be using today is "Creativity is intelligence having fun." I usually write this at the top of my paper in capitals just for reference that I can keep going back to. Next up, I underline the words I'm going to give provenance to. So in this case I'm going to give creativity, intelligence and fun. I know these words are going to be larger and more decorative in the piece, and that the secondary words like is and having will be a simple style to them and will appear much smaller. Following on from that, I draw a box round each of the words. The reason I do this is because it's easier to start coming up with layout ideas using basic rectangles than it is using the words which consist of multiple different shapes. With a series of thumbnails, I start experimenting with a range of different layouts, sometimes keeping the boxes straight, sometimes curving them or bringing them in the middle. But the thing that usually stays consistent is symmetry. That can be vertical symmetry like in most of them, or this one where it's horizontal symmetry, so the bottom reflects what the top's like. But doing this just helps to balance out the lettering piece. So once I'm happy with that, I then start to populate the boxes with the letters from each of the words, and then think of some of the effects that I might want to apply to them once I start getting into Affinity Designer. And rather than just do one sketch and work on that, every thumbnail is an iteration of the previous one. So here it's quite simple, and then I start thinking about, I want maybe have intelligence 3D, I might have an arrow where the word is, and then I might have like a serif style with the fun, and I might move those letters around a bit and give them a bit of a different look to contrast between the word intelligence. So once I'm at a point I'm happy with it, I can then take it onto the iPad and open up Affinity Designer. So we're in Affinity Designer and I create a new document. This is A4 size, or roughly US letter, and the first thing we want to do is change the background colour to black. So select the rectangle tool and draw it over the whole of your canvas, then go up to the colour panel and select black. And then what we want to do is go to the layers panel and the circle with the three dots, click lock so we don't accidentally move it around. Next thing we want to do is create some guides just to help bring our piece together and anchor our lettering to it. So you want to click on the little file icon and guides, click on show guides, and then we want to add a vertical one. We want one straight down the middle just so we can, as I say, anchor it together like we did in the sketches. I know it's 210 wide, 210 millimeters wide, so I know 105 is where the center will be. And then also we want to create some margins as well. So click on show margins and then make all of those. It's up to you what you create them. For me, I'm doing it 15, so that there's just a nice space around the outside so you don't butt up against the edges, and it gives it some breathing room around the outside. So once you've done that, also make sure they show up in Pixel Persona. So if you click on Pixel Persona, make sure you click on guides and show guides, otherwise it might not show there if you do that. So once you've done that, click on the layers panel and the plus icon and new pixel layer. We're now going to use a set of brushes called Grid and Letter Builder. These help you to put together the layout of your piece really quickly and easily, so you don't have to faff with like manually drawing loads of guides all over your page. I'll leave a link in the description below with some free samples of these and also the chalk brushes I'll be using later on. So first of all, you want to make sure that you're in Pixel Persona, and then choose a colour for your guides. I'm going to choose this sort of pinky colour, just so it contrasts, because everything's going to be white, chalk white. So we'll use this pinky colour, and then we'll use the blue colour in a minute. And then what you want to do is choose the paintbrush tool, and then go in and choose one of the grids. Choose that arc, making sure we're on the pixel layer, and then tap anywhere on the screen and then use the move tool to enlarge it, and that will also bring up your margins and the center line to snap it to. So make that a little bit bigger. Create a new pixel layer, grab another grid, we're going to tap that down, get the move tool again and make it the width of our piece, and just bring it up a little bit, and then we're just going to do that once more. New pixel layer, another grid, place it, and then we're just going to move it into place, maybe rotate it a bit. There we go. And then for the letter builder bits, new vector layer, go back to vector persona, and then we're going to select on the type tool, click on here, and then we've got letter builder selected in the fonts, and then we're going to make it the size we can see it, and for these we're going to make it a blue colour to contrast the other grids. And bring up the keyboard, and we're just going to type in, so we don't have to calculate how many letters in, we're just going to type in the word intelligence. Get the move tool, move it into place, but it'd be good to space those a bit better, sort of bring the spacing in, make it a bit tighter, enlarge it a bit more. So go back to the type tool, double click to select, and then go to the text panel, and then what we're going to do is go to positioning and go to tracking, and then we're going to go into the negative and reduce that quite a bit so it's much tighter. And then what we're going to do is the move tool again, just to enlarge to the edges, and also bring it and make it quite tall and narrow. So for the word creativity, we are going to create a new vector layer, and then what we're going to do is click on the rectangle tool, but then hold down again, and that will bring up the options. We're going to select ellipse, draw a big ellipse, but hide the colour, and move that up. And we're going to do type on a path, so click on the type tool, click on the path anywhere, type in the word creativity, and then we're going to make sure that that's central, and then we're going to grab these orange and green markers. I'm going to bring that all the way around to the left and bring that one up to the right, so it centralizes it. And then we're going to get the move tool, just bring it down a bit, and then we are going to angle a bit sharper. And again, like we did with the other word, is click on the type tool and reduce the tracking quite a bit, so they're quite close together, and then make them a bit bigger. Actually, let's change the vertical alignment, make them a bit taller. And we can do that by going back to our text panel and the text positioning and the vertical scale. We can just increase so it fits that. So that's that one done. And then for the new vector layer, and for fun, we're just going to draw out 3 letters, type out 3 letters. Actually, we're going to make this the bold version and enlarge that. We don't need to worry about the spacing because we're going to do all those letters individually, and then we're going to rotate them and overlap them. So that's our rough layout done. We can then select all those layers by swiping to the right, and then click on this icon in the center here, which will group them, and then select on those 3 dots again. Maybe reduce the opacity so we can still see it, but it's just there to help us, and then click lock so we don't move it. So for this next bit, we're going to roughly draw out our letters so that we can then go on to refine them and start adding certain effects to them. So for this, most of this process now is going to be in Pixel Persona and using the paintbrush tool. And you can find a couple of chalk brushes in the dry media. There's 2 at the top there. Or I'm going to be using my ChalkDust set and the chalk script one. So we need to create a new pixel layer for this and a white color. Just making sure that actually the color down here is the same as the one on the top. There we go. And then we can start drawing. So now we've got the rough letters down, we'll come back and do the is and having in a bit. But as you can see, we've got some areas where we just need to fix the spacing. So how we do that is by using the freehand selection tool. And we're just going to select that area and then the move tool. Just bring it in a bit closer. Deselect it by pressing the X. I'm just going to move it back into the middle again. And then the same with creativity. Freehand selection tool. Start here. We just need to bring these in closer. Might be easier if you turn off the snapping, which is the magnet at the bottom left. Deselect. Select the area again, move tool, bring it in a bit, deselect, and then select this area, deselect, and then last bit, I'll select this area, bring that closer. And then and bring that into the middle. I mean, we might need to rotate it a bit as we brought that side in so much. There we go. Now what we can do now is we can start turning off, because we've got our letters there, we can start turning off some of those grids. I can leave the one for having there. And now we can just reduce that opacity and then create a new layer above it. New pixel layer, and go back to our paintbrush tool and then go over it and just sort of refine it. Now we've got the spacing done and the rough letters. We're just looking for a bit more consistency, you know, the consistency of the weight. So like the bottom of the C was a little bit heavy, so we're going to go over that again and just refine it. So for this top one, I'm probably going to choose like an outline looking one, but I'm going to probably fill in intelligence and also give it a more traditional style, so like a serif style, so adding little serifs to parts of the letter to make it look like that. And with the fun, we're going to make it maybe a little bit bolder and add some serifs to that too. Don't forget to keep using your razor brush tool to sort of refine areas where you might have gone over. If with the eraser tool, whatever brush you select for that, when you select the eraser tool will be the same one, or you can select one of the different ones, but having the same brush as the razor tool will give the same texture when you're erasing as well. And also, if you find areas where the letters naturally go into each other, then maybe do join those two up, or here where we've got the V that also looks like it can make up the dots of the I as well. It just helps to intertwine sometimes the letters and give a bit more interest to the piece. What we're going to do now is apply some effects to these three words. They're all going to be 3D, but they're all going to be slightly different techniques. So let's start off with creativity. So with that layer selected, go up to the three dots and select duplicate. Select the bottom one of those two duplicate words. And first we are going to reduce the opacity right down to about 25-ish%. And then select the move tool. And then what we're going to do is reduce it and bring it back to the middle. Make sure you've got snapping back on by highlighting the magnet icon. And we're going to bring it down, make it a little bit smaller. And then once we're happy with that, we go to our layers panel and create another pixel layer. So there's a blank one in between the reduced opacity one and the main one. And we want to select our paintbrush tool and the one that we were on to create creativity in the beginning. And then what we want to do is just join the bottoms of these letters with the bottoms of the grayed out letters down here. So I'm just going to join these up and just fill it in. And same with the edges of the Y up here. I'm going to draw a line straight down to the edge of the duplicate Y. And just fill that area in. And we do that over the whole word. Once we've completed this, what we're going to do now is remove or turn off the duplicate layer that was our reference point, and then we want to go to the plus icon and we want a mask layer for this base layer, because we're going to raise it apart, give it a bit more depth. So what we're going to do is, with that selected, we are going to select the eraser tool, and then we're going to select the dust eraser, and then what we're going to do is just gently erase the areas down the bottom. And also some of the bits up the side as well. Just looking like it's fading away into the distance. So that's the first technique. So that's our word creativity finished. So let's move on to intelligence. So again, we're going to do a similar sort of process at the beginning, which is duplicate it by going to 3 dots and reduce the opacity of that lower one. And then go to the move tool and make it smaller. And then again create a new pixel layer, but this time we are going to just do some white lines on the very edges of the letters. So it's like the highlight, so the actual shadow of the letter is just going to be black anyway, but the highlights that we're doing, which is these white bits. So we're just going to do a bit of a line heading down towards our reference point where each of the corners are. But don't go all the way down, just a little bit, but in the right direction. Now if we turn off that reference layer, that one gives just a subtle 3D look, but it is different from the top one. So sometimes it's good to have the same effect going on. Sometimes it's good to have that contrast. So now the last 3D look is with the word fun. So what we're going to do with this is actually we're going to separate each of the letters onto its own layer. So select the layer, select the freehand selection tool, select the letter, and we are going to cut and then go paste. And we'll do that with the U as well, and then the N will be on its own. So like with the other two, we're going to use that technique where we duplicate the layer, and with the bottom one we are going to reduce opacity again and move it. This one we're going to move it down to the right. Because we're doing chalkboard, we don't have to be pixel perfect. Once we're happy where it is, we then just go back to the top layer. We don't need to make a new duplicate one because we're just going to make it all one piece. Select the brush tool, and then what we're going to do is just join up every corner with a line, and then the horizontals are going to just join those lines, so we're creating an outline 3D like so. And once we've done that, we can then turn off our bottom layer, and then actually we're going to let's fill that in. Now we've done it with that letter, I'll go on and do the U and the N in the same sort of style. So the word fun is still looking a bit serious, so we're going to give it its own personality. So we're going to do a different effect inside each of the letters. So we're going to start with F, and we're going to do some dots going in a line through the F. So you can either draw them just manually, or I've got a dot liner pen to use. So you can just draw those quickly through the letter. So that's F done. Now select U, and for that one we're just going to draw a thin U inside it and in line. And then for the N we are going to do some stippling, which is just a series of lots and lots of dots. So I've got a stipple shader here, and I'm going to go over just the base part of the letter. And I'm going to raise parts of it in a minute, but I'm just going to get some of that there. So it sort of fades off to nothing. I'm going to grab the eraser tool with a cloth eraser. Make sure it's quite small. I'm just going to go around and just refine that edge, give it a bit of space between that and the edge of the letter. There you go. So pretty happy with how the word fun is looking. Now we are going to position them so they're overlapping and angled at the same time. And so starting off with the F and the move tool, we're going to rotate that slightly. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. And then we're going to rotate the U with the move tool. Make it a little bit bigger. Bring it up a bit. And then finally the N. You make the U a bit bigger. Now what we're going to do is give the U, we're going to add a mask, so plus add a mask, and then the N we're going to plus add a mask layer. So what it means is with the end selected and the eraser tool and selecting the cloth eraser, we are going to just erase the part where it's overlapping, and then softly or gently erase a shadow coming through there like that, so it looks like it's casting a shadow on the end. And we're going to do the same thing with the U, with the F that's overlapping it. We're just going to gently erase some of the U there. Really happy with that. So that's the three main words done. Now we can do the secondary words, is and having. Before we start doing the next bit, it'd probably be a good idea to get your layers panel organized by putting things in group and renaming them. So I'm going to do that now. That's better. So create a new pixel layer. We're going to start with is. Grab the paintbrush tool and the brush we've been using. And first of all, I'm going to draw an arrow because that's from my sketch is going to be there. It's sort of saying is sort of linking the creativity with intelligence. I'm happy with my arrow. I want to make it 3D as well, like everything else. So again, duplicate that layer, reduce the opacity of the bottom layer and move it away. For this one, I'm going to move it slightly to the side. Let's go to your normal layer. And a bit like how I've done with the fun, I'm just going to first go around the outline and then just fill it in. Get rid of that underlying layer. Now I'm just going to freehand some lettering inside it, new pixel layer. Make sure you give it space from the edges. Because it's quite a small word, I'm just going to fill the rest of it up with just some dots. And like we did with the overlapping fun, I'm just going to bring creativity down a little bit. And then I'm going to bring the arrow down a little bit and over, and then we can give a whole group a mask as well as just an individual layer. So we're just going to apply that to the intelligence. We're going to plus add a mask layer, get the eraser tool, select the cloth eraser again, and then we're going to gently erase away a shadow over the intelligence layer. Actually, we can do the same with creativity because there's a bit of overlap there, so add a mask to that layer and then just gently erase a bit of it, not too much because it's above it. But So that's our is done. Now we can focus on the having. Again, this is going to overlap, I think, the fun and a bit of the intelligence, not much. So we can just put that above everything else. So new pixel layer, grab our normal brush. And for this, I wanted to have a banner. So the best way to do banners, I find, is to do, so we've got this grid here. I'm just going to follow the line. I do a curve stroke. I just start with the top one. I don't focus on trying to draw the whole thing at one time. And then I go to the 3 dots at the top there, and then I click duplicate and then move it down. So that I get a symmetrical banner. So once I'm happy with that, I then select both of those, click the second icon along and merge selected. Grab my paintbrush tool again, and I'm just going to add the end of it here. It'll cut away, join up this end, and where the banner wraps around, I'm going to put a bit over here. This is like a backwards S. Draw that there, and then just add a line that's parallel with that. And again, I'm going to add a line in, a couple of lines in for the start of the banner. And then I'm just going to fill it in like this. I'm not going to fill it with a paintbrush too, because I want the texture of the brush, like I've been doing all over. So there's our banner, but we just want to add some shadow around this area where it overlaps. So again, we grab the cloth eraser, do that bit under there, and also where it wraps behind. And there's our banner. We're just going to move that so it's more central. And before we put the letters on, we're just going to bring fun up. Add a mask to that group. And we're just going to erase a little bit of it, just where it gets hidden by the banner. And the same with intelligence. We're just going to, already got a mask on it, we're just going to go over those little bits that are being overlapped. There we go. And then lastly, we just need to add some text. So what we're going to do is add a mask to the banner layer and a razor tool using our normal brush, the chalk script one, leaving some space around the edges. We're just going to write out having. A good thing about doing a mask is that if you need to move it around, it's not a permanent erasing. So I can now go to open up the mask, click on the mask layer, and I can actually move just the mask. That'll do. And then I'm just going to add a little arrow here to fill in that sort of space. Sort of direct people in the right way of reading it. So that's the main words done. Now we're just going to add some elements to bring it all together. So first up, we are going to create a new layer above our guides layer, which we can turn completely off now. So new pixel layer, and I'm going to select the paintbrush tool and one which is called sprinkler. So this is like dust you get from chalk that's sprinkled on here, and we're just going to literally dust that chalk around the edge just to fill in all that black space. Leaving a bit of gap between this and the text. And then grabbing the normal chalk script that we've been using, just going to do some little elements. So around the fun, we're just going to do like party streamers, a few dots, and then creativity. We're just going to do some sort of just thinking about this quote is supposedly from Einstein, but we don't know for certain. But you know, just thinking about sort of that ideas, looking up the stars sort of thing. So we're just going to put a few of those stars up here. And I think we're done. I hope you found that useful. If you've got any questions about any of my process, then please do leave them in the comment section below and I'll happily answer them for you. Otherwise, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.